Booking flights is not easy or intuitive. On the contrary, it's time-consuming, nebulous, and quite frankly, frustrating. Or maybe it's just me, but I don't think so. Today, I'm sharing the top 10 flight booking mistakes to avoid, and for each mistake, some of which could full-on ruin your trip, I'll share booking solutions so you can book your next trip the right way for the best fare. Make sure you watch to the end because the last one could totally ruin your trip. Let's do this. Mistake number 1 is thinking that the price is the price. It's not. When you search for a flight, you can usually see prices at a glance on a week-long or month-long calendar. Most people want to get the best price on airfare, so they choose the day with the lowest price. Most airlines want to be displaying that price after you click, but they also want to be making the most money. So, airlines looking to nab the lowest airfare price will sell bare-bones fares and then increase the ultimate cost with a bevy of add-ons, like seat selection, bags, insurance, meals, drinks, and more. In the case of some super budget airlines, this can be misleading. Because if you compare a budget airfare with seat selection and baggage added on to a larger carrier with all of that already bundled in some cases, these budget airlines may just actually end up being more expensive. The solution is to scrutinize the flight booking page. Make sure you're booking a flight with allowable luggage size and dimensions for your needs. And if the bare bones fare doesn't have what you need, make sure that you have the ability to get the add-ons that you need for a reasonable fee. This said, stripped down fares aren't all bad, because they allow you to select only the add-ons that you really want. For example, we all know that airline meals are not that great. So if you're faced with an option to pay for a meal, maybe you prefer to bring something on board that is healthier or tastier and almost certainly cheaper. Also, consider things like seat selection and whether it's important to you. We'll get into that more in a second. Lastly, make sure that you're not locking yourself into a ticket that is so basic that it doesn't even give you an option to make the upgrades that you need. This leads me to flight booking mistake number 2, which is booking on anything other than the airline's website. I once booked a flight on a third-party site, also known as an OTA, which is short for online travel agent. I noticed that carry-on baggage was not included in the fare, and there was no way to buy it along with the flight ticket. But I assumed I could just add it on after the fact, either on the airline website's Manage My Booking page or even at the airport. Imagine my surprise when I logged into the airline's website and found my booking, only to discover that the class of airfare that I bought was so restrictive that I was actually not allowed to purchase a carry-on bag at all. I spent the next week canceling my ticket and fighting with the third-party site to get my money back. Now, this was a bit of a bizarre situation because this third-party site didn't offer any different tiers of airfare for this particular flight. They only had this one fare. In most cases, third-party sites will usually give you similar options to what the airline website would give you. But my story should serve as a cautionary tale to you not to make that assumption. Sadly, this wasn't the only occasion that I used a third-party site and things went wrong. Once, I booked a flight using a third-party site that had a better route and connection time than I was able to find anywhere else. I should have known that it was too good to be true when I couldn't find the same flights on the airline's website. But I took a chance and booked it with the third-party site. Of course, it all went wrong 24 hours later when I got an email from the third-party site saying that the flight I booked was no longer available and they had magnanimously changed my route and connection to something way worse. Again, I spent the next week wrestling with the third-party website to cancel my ticket and get my money back. Here's the solution. When you book a flight using the airline's website, you will have a much clearer picture of exactly what you're getting. Not only that, but if something goes wrong while you're in the middle of your trip or even at the airport, if you book the flight directly with the airline help desk at the airport can assist you. If you used a third-party site, you're usually required to call them directly to fix the problem, which is not only less convenient, but it could be a really big problem if you're on the other side of the world and their offices are closed with the time difference, or you don't have a phone plan that allows you to call their office, etc. You get the picture. Just book with the airline directly. I mentioned seats earlier, so let's get back to that with common flight booking error number 3, which is getting suckered into paying for seat selection. You never have to pay for seats, but some airlines will make you think you do. Airlines are very good at designing checkout pages to make it look unintuitive to not select your seats. If you're not really careful, it's easy to assume that it's something you simply have to do, but you don't. By not paying for a seat in advance, the airline will automatically assign you a seat at check-in. In some cases, you can even choose your seat at check-in without paying a fee. In other cases, you may be able to check in at the airport and you can ask the check-in agent if they can change your seat. I tried this earlier this year just to see if it was possible, and it worked. The trick was I showed up to the airport extra early and the check-in agent wasn't busy, and I asked nicely because I knew that if they could even make the change at all, it was 100% at their discretion. If you are a couple or family traveling together, the seat selection debacle is, of course, more complicated. Because although most airlines will endeavor to seat people together if they're booked on the same ticket, there is rarely any guarantee that that will actually happen. So in certain cases, you may just decide that it's worthwhile to pay for your seats in advance, so at least you know what you're going to get. But remember, it's never a requirement, it's an option. Speaking of options, the next flight booking mistake to avoid is getting suckered into overpriced add-ons that you don't need. Some airlines are worse than others when it comes to this, but almost all airlines are guilty of inundating customers with add-ons as part of the checkout process. In researching this video, I went through a few different flight booking processes with a few different airlines just to see the various techniques that airlines use to part us with more money than necessary. I got pages that outline fees for both checked bags and carry-on bags, and ironically, in some cases, carry-on luggage was more expensive than checked luggage. When I declined the luggage fees, I was reminded that it would be more expensive if I waited until I got to the airport. Next up was the seat selection page, which in some cases didn't really have a logical way to not select seats. And if I made it past the seat selection pages unscathed, I was again, in some cases, reminded how I was somehow leaving money on the table by not paying for seats. Next up was travel insurance. Most airlines offer this, and it's rarely comprehensive or a good deal. Let me know in the comments if you'd like me to do a video about different kinds of travel insurance you can get. In short, I usually don't recommend getting it through the airlines like this. But we still weren't done at all with the flight booking add-ons. Next up was the car rental and hotel deals, a messy and complex page that was quite unnecessary and a bit overwhelming. Actually, I'd love to know if these pages work. Have you ever booked a rental car or hotel on a flight checkout page? No judgment if you have. I would love to know what your experience was like and if you had a good price. Please share in the comments. All of these add-ons were with one airline, although I've seen other airlines with similar checkout pages. This particular airline was also very aggressively selling a membership to their special Fare Saver program, which I'll admit, if you fly with them frequently, is actually a good deal. The only thing they didn't try to sell me was a carbon offset for my flight. This is another common flight booking add-on that I see on checkout pages. While I'm all for carbon offsetting, when you do it through the airline on their checkout page, the airline is usually getting some kind of commission, which means not all of the money that you're spending on that carbon offset is actually going towards the offset. If you're interested in carbon offsetting, there are dedicated websites that you can visit to do this. Here are a few more rapid-fire common flight booking errors before I get to the almighty trip destroyer. Online booking mistake number 5 is not comparison shopping. I'll admit I'm a bit guilty of assuming that Google Flights consistently has the best prices. But there is a school of thought that says you can actually find better deals on other flight search websites from time to time. Sites to consider cross-referencing your search with include Skyscanner, Kayak, and Momondo. Some people also like using sites like Expedia and Cheapo Air, but personally, having been burnt a few times by using OTAs and third-party websites, I don't even like to tease myself with whatever deals they may have or whatever price guarantees they may offer. That's entirely a personal decision though. Sites like Expedia are very well known and commonly used. It's up to you. The next mistake is actually just an essential flight booking tip, which is to be really careful when entering in your passenger information while booking a flight. Don't rush this. Pay special attention to making sure your name is entered and spelled correctly, because sometimes the name fields may vary depending on the airline, especially if you're using a regional airline in another part of the world where names have different formats. Pay the same care to entering in your date of birth properly. Some use day-month formats and others use month-day formats. The same care and attention needs to go to your passport information and your email address so that you can receive the necessary confirmations. In some cases, if you make a mistake that is substantial, depending on the airline, they may not even allow for corrections and you could lose the ticket altogether. Mistake number 7 is not collecting frequent flyer miles. It doesn't cost anything to join an airline's frequent flyer program, and it doesn't cost anything to accumulate the miles. The opportunity cost of not having miles, though, can be substantial. Almost all of my long-haul flights are in business class for less than economy prices, and that's because of my strategic use of frequent flyer miles. I'll admit it's time-consuming, and it involves a lot more than just collecting miles on the flights that I take, but it's a start. If you're interested in learning more about frequent flyer miles, I'll leave some resources in the description. If you'd like me to create an episode about frequent flyer mile strategies, please let me know in the comments. Flight booking mistake number 8 is booking a return flight without first checking the price of 2 one-way flights. In some cases, booking 2 one-way flights can be more cost-effective than a round-trip ticket. Airlines often have different pricing structures for one-way and round-trip flights, and by comparing prices, you may find that booking separate one-way flights is a better deal. Additionally, it provides you more flexibility if you need to change or cancel one leg of your trip while keeping the other intact. Flight booking error number 9 is not waiting for the confirmation. Whenever I book a flight, I take a screenshot of the confirmation page on the website, and I also keep that page open. Then I check my emails and wait for the confirmation email to arrive. Sometimes this can take a few minutes or even a few hours, so don't get too nervous if it doesn't show up right away. But if your flight confirmation does not arrive within 24 hours, contact the airline with your flight confirmation code to see if the purchase actually went through. Perhaps you made a mistake in entering your email address, which is why it's important to be vigilant when entering in your personal information in the first place. Or perhaps something went wrong in the booking process and your ticket never got issued. It's better to know that right away than to figure it out at the airport. Also, by taking a screenshot of your confirmation page, you are also getting a record of how much money you spent on that ticket. Because if there is a problem and the ticket needs to be reissued and the airline tries to charge you a higher rate, you can use the screenshot as evidence for the airline to match the price that you were originally offered. All right, it's time for the trip destroyer, the big daddy of flight booking errors, and something that airlines frankly should not even allow you to do. And that is to book a connecting flight with an impossibly short connection time. It's merely a risk if you book this itinerary on the same ticket. It's a full-on fatal flaw if you booked 2 separate tickets. Let me explain. If you book a connecting flight on the same ticket, then if the first flight is delayed such that you missed the second flight, it's on the airline to get you on the next available flight at no charge to you. The cost for this is ultimately an inconvenience. But that inconvenience is not to be underestimated if there aren't any more onward flights for another day or 2. Imagine missing the start of a tour that you've booked or a cruise you were supposed to get on because you missed a connecting flight. That's bad enough. But if your connecting flight is on a separate ticket and you missed the second flight because the first one was delayed, that's considered a no-show. And the airline is not only not responsible for putting you on a new flight, but they will also not give you your money back for the flight that you missed. So in that case, you would be on the spot to book a new flight right there and then, which inevitably will be at great expense. Personally, I am a big fan of building in a minimum of 90 minutes in between flights. I would much rather kill time at the airport in between flights than stress out the entire time about whether or not I'm going to make a connection. There's actually a lot more that I can say on the topic of layovers and the common mistakes that people make when booking flights with layovers. But I think I'm going to save that one for another episode. So if you are interested in catching that video, please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell for notifications so you can be alerted when I come out with new content designed to help you travel smart in style. I'm Nora Dunn, aka the Professional Hobo, and I will catch you next time. Ciao. We'll be right back.